Welcome to the Show Me the Data podcast by LeadSift, where every week we get marketing and sales leaders from fast-growing B2B tech companies to share specific tactics they use to drive revenue for their business. The best part, they share the exact metrics and data points behind each of their tactics. I'm your host, Tukan, the co-founder and CEO of LeadSift. See you there. Hello, everyone. This is Tukan from LeadSift here. My guest for the show today is Andy Davis. Andy is the Director of Demand Generation at Attest. Welcome to the Show Me the Data podcast, Andy.
Thank you. Really great to be here.
Awesome. So I guess before we get started, Andy, one thing that'll be helpful is if you want to give a quick high-level overview of what you guys do at Attest.
Yeah, sure. We're a consumer research platform. So we enable primarily B2C companies. If they have a question that they want to ask their target consumers, or they have a hunch or assumption about what their target consumers are thinking, we give them the ability to run that survey to that audience and find out the answer to that question or disprove that assumption very quickly and very easily. So it means that those teams can be constantly tapped into the people that they're trying to know better and sell to.
Great. So who's your typical target audience in this case? Like, who do you guys sell to?
So we all sell to marketing teams and insights teams. So in some of the larger companies, we'll have kind of like research and insights professionals who will use our platform, but a lot of our customers are marketers.
Understood. And obviously you're targeting like consumer facing brands, retailers and those kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Like food and beverage, direct to consumer brands, like anyone with a reasonably large consumer kind of audience that they're trying to get in touch with.
Understood. And just out of curiosity, how often do people run these tests?
Like massively varies depending on the client, but like it's not uncommon for someone to do like a brand tracker once a month, once a quarter. So that would just be a dip just to see kind of like, has brand awareness, perception, consideration, all of these things gone up, gone down in that period. But then people use it for like consumer profiling, get to know their consumer better, creative testing, right? These things can be like creative testing can be like all the time, right? Anytime you're about to run a new campaign, you can test it live or you can test it through a test and run whichever one kind of works best live.
And how long does it normally take to get the results back?
You're talking like in some cases hours.
Oh, max wow.
Day. Yeah. It's super fast.
Almost real time.
Yeah. I mean, you can see the numbers coming in real time, but to fill it, I mean, it depends a bit on how many questions and what the audience is, how big the sample size you want. But yeah, we're talking kind of days max.
Very cool. Great. So let's dive into our today's topic. It's one of my favorite topics is, lead generation. So you're the, director of demand gen, and it seems like you guys made a pretty big shift with your lead gen strategy at Attest over the last little bit. But can you tell me, before you made the switch to whatever you were doing, currently, what were you guys doing before?
Yeah, sure. So we were like heavy users of predominantly LinkedIn as LinkedIn lead gen forms. So promoting kind of downloadable assets like PDF content about various things like related to what Attest does, right? Kind of all educational, all great content. But this was like the primary kind of like bedrock of what we were doing. Lots of different campaigns, different content assets targeted to different audiences, but all with the singular objective of get someone to download that form. And then when they've downloaded that form, assuming they meet a few criteria, put them into the hands of the SDRs, and then the SDRs would then try and get in touch and bring them into the sales pipeline.
Got it. So if I understand, it seems like you were using like a paid social, which is LinkedIn primarily, to drive people to download a lead magnet or
100%. Yes, exactly.
And then give it to SDRs to follow up to book a meeting.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
Got it. So now you changed that, and we are going to talk about that. Before we talk about, why did you decide to change?
I read around, I educate myself all the time, right? And so I follow some extremely good advice that I came across, and just started really digging into the data, like really analyzing of all of the different sources that we have leads coming into our world. not how many leads are we getting, not how many MQLs or SALs are getting, but how much revenue are we generating from these things?
Totally.
And when looking at this particular source, the LinkedIn lead gen source,
Yeah,
like that
got
was
it.
a very sad day, right? So you end up discovering you've got a 0.1% conversion rate from lead to a new client, right? Which is pretty dire.
Yeah,
But a reasonable amount of money going into the activity,
totally.
which, I mean, triggered like pretty strong response. I was like, we just need to stop. Didn't necessarily have like an instant backup plan. Like my boss very sensibly asked me, like, what are you going to do next? And I was like, I'm not quite sure. First step is stop wasting that money. And then I'll come back with like a bit more of a plan about what we're going to do as an alternative type of campaigns. But that was the real trigger. It was like, right, let's think that like the marketing team were already on a bit of a journey away from being a lead gen function to like, we want to be a revenue generating function.
Absolutely.
So we started moving our KPIs down the funnel. So we'd already moved the KPI from like leads MQLs. This was in Q4 of last year. And these MQLs to meetings booked, as in SDR successfully books a follow-up meeting for an AE to take with that prospect. That really made us start looking like being way more focused on pipeline impact. Rather than like what we can see in a channel, LinkedIn, what can we see in our CRM happening in the pipeline?
Yeah.
And you start doing the analysis that I just described, you're like, well, wait a minute, we're doing loads of this thing in the channel, and it's not moving this number in the pipeline, like hardly at all. A lot of noise in the system, not a lot of like revenue outcome at the bottom of that system. So something had to change.
Absolutely. So let me ask you a couple follow-up questions there, Andy. So basically you as a marketer at that point, or whoever was the primary driver before you guys decided to switch, was MQLs and leads.
Yeah, 100%.
Got it. And you said the main thing that made you shift was looking at this conversion from MQL or leads to actual deals closed, which is what, 0.01% or 0.1%. That's really poor. Now, what was working? Because you guys were closing deals. So what were the other things that were bringing in new customers?
Yeah, so like a lot of it was coming from our kind of like demo request form, or like our chat tool, people coming through like that.
Got it.
You were coming through, like they were downloading content on the website and they were kind of coming into the pipeline that way. It was a bit of a strange time. Like, so if you imagine this analysis is taking place in January.
Yeah.
Right. So I'd only been in the business since June the year before. So I joined during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Really have any data about events.
Yeah.
Like didn't really have, like there were like some sources which we have been used to having and that we like have in our like toolkit now a bit more, that didn't really exist at the time. So where that most of that value was coming from, some kind of content downloads from the website.
Yeah.
But the majority was the kind of like demo request. And
Got it. So just ballpark numbers, Andy, what percentage of your marketing budget before you switch were you spending on this paid advertisement to drive gated content?
80%.
80%?
Yeah, like vast majority of the budget was going.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool. So now you look at the data and you're like, damn, these leads that we are generating, that is making me feel good as a marketer. If I'm just being measured on marketing led MQLs, they're not converting into revenue. Yeah. So what do you start doing? So what was your plan from there on?
That's a great question, right? So I start first of all we stopped doing that.
Yeah.
Right. I started scouring the internet to see what other people in this situation do, right? Right, learn from others. And then also then just started looking for other, like we knew that what we knew was our target audience is in this channel.
Yep.
Because they've been downloading our stuff, and the people that have been downloading the content are like a great fit for a test. So we're like, right, ICP audience is in this channel.
That's right.
The mechanism that we are using to communicate with them is not working, right? We're like getting them to download something, handing them over like they're ready to be sold to, and they're not. Okay. So that we know that the LinkedIn is a viable channel. We're just need to use it slightly differently, right? So I started thinking, like, what do we already have? What content do we already have that we could use to communicate with them in this channel? The answer is quite a lot. Like we had video case studies. This was thing number one. Okay, so like just take our video case studies and just run campaigns around them. First of all, just didn't even, because we wanted to move quickly, didn't even try and chop them up. They were like somewhere between 2 and 4 minutes, just to get into the channel quickly, so that we didn't disappear out of the market, reasonably competitive market. Don't want to just vanish. Just ran them. As a second step, started cutting them up and like running slightly shorter snippets, just with like the really juicy quotes. So that was really the first step of being like, right, okay, we need to rethink how we're using this channel. Think about it as a mechanism to communicate a message rather than to like acquire a lead. Okay. What do we have already that can be used to do that with like minimal effort, so we can go from like that realization to having a campaign live quite quickly, and kind of like landed with those video case studies, which we already had at the time.
Got it. So your primary objective now, campaign objective, moved from getting someone like an MQL to now demo booked. Is that the primary objective that you were optimizing for?
Yeah. So like booking a demo is like the ultimate objective.
Yeah.
But the campaign is not just measured on that.
Okay.
Right. Because so we're like, if we're going to run a video, we want people to be watching the video. That's like thing one. If they click through to our site, that's cool. And if I can see a direct conversion to a demo request, that's also great.
Yep.
But you kind of know, like in your gut, if let's say 1,000 people watch the video. Yeah. Some of those 1,000 may see another ad in like 2 months' time.
Sure.
And go through a search channel and book a demo there. And LinkedIn will have no idea. You'll have no idea. So you have to be, we're like part of the, I thought it was exciting, but I think some of the team found it scary. Yeah. Things about the change was you have to loosen up a bit on like how much you can rely on like easy attribution. Attributing lead gen was easy. Someone downloaded it. Were they the right fit?
Yeah. Where did they come from?
It's like a straight line.
Yeah.
When we made this change, right, it starts getting really messy. So like that, yes, of course, if someone books a demo, that's what we're actually ultimately aiming for. Yeah. Being able to draw in a straight line from that demo booking to the thing that we did in LinkedIn, much harder to do. And therefore just kind of like let that go a little bit, so that we didn't start turning off things that potentially were valuable just because they weren't directly leading to demo requests.
Understood. Now, one question I have is for the SDRs that were used to getting these leads that are coming from download, like content downloads, and for them to follow up. What's going on with them at this point? Because there are not so many, leads coming in via inbound. What's the situation there at that point?
Exactly. That's like a huge factor in like internal kind of changes that are required. So at this point in like, this is January time, right? This was the only channel that we're turning off. So like there was still a reasonably high lead volume coming in through like website content downloads or people coming to webinars and things like that. So like there's like, wasn't just a wholesale switch off of every content download. There was just this really specific place that we wanted to make a change. Most like honestly, because there was like quite a lot of money going into that channel, right? So if you feel in the other ones, they're like close to free, and therefore like you just didn't feel quite as much pressure on them. Like in retrospect, it was all the same thing and probably could have changed everything at the same time. But like, I don't have a time machine. I can't go back and make that decision for myself 7 months ago. So we did what we did. But like, so they were still like the lead volume for that SDR team was still like reasonable at that point. It wasn't kind of like, it wasn't.
Understood. So the lead magnets that you were promoting on LinkedIn, you still continued having those lead magnets on your website. You were just not putting paid dollars to drive people to download.
Correct. So so there's a reasonably high volume of downloads that happen just with people coming to our site and finding the content and downloading it.
Absolutely. So you talked about attribution and you gave a very specific example, and we struggle with it ourselves. So someone sees a video ad, as you mentioned, a video case study on LinkedIn, and they might or might not have clicked to your website, but they remember the brand Attest. 2 months later, they were talking internally. They're like, oh, let's Google Attest, go to your website, book a demo. I do not know if it is possible to attribute that flow.
if so, my question to you is, how do you track it from a marketing cost per demo booked or cost of acquisition if you're thinking from paid channels and stuff like that?
Yeah, sure. So we do a few things around attribution. So it's a bit like this, all of this is a little bit messy, but
sure,
here's what it is. So we have, like, with all of these demo book conversions, we get the last converting channel, like either Google Analytics or like in Salesforce, we see that. Cool.
Sure.
Most of them are search. Fine. We kind of knew that anyway. We also have a question on our demo request form. Where did you find out about Attest?
True.
That gives us a little bit of a clue, like, okay, where are they finding out about? Some of them say Google, some of them say LinkedIn, whatever. We also, our sales team are like kind of primed to like pass on feedback into the team whenever they get it. So the other day we got some feedback from someone. They said, they came in through demo request, everything said search, but in the conversation with the salesperson, they said, we see your ads everywhere and we can see who you've worked with, and like, you've been on my mind and I've been meaning to reach out for a few weeks. Like,
that is awesome.
What's important though, we've seen your ads. You can click on your ads.
Yeah.
You know, I've just seen them, but I'm like, that's really useful intel, because like there's a little bit of a leap of faith here. Like, all right, someone's seen what we're promoting, and at some point that will resonate. That's resonated, and at some point they'll come through, and it'll be like we'll get the outcome that we want. So getting that kind of feedback from the sales team.
Got it.
I did also go through an exercise where I emailed 6 months. Anyone that had completed that demo request form over the last 6 months, I emailed them and said, could you tell me your story about how you found out about Attest, and we'll give you an Amazon voucher. And that was super illuminating. Which it's lots of word of mouth, but really illuminating about like how people found out about us.
That's actually a very smart thing to do. Okay, I'm gonna pass that to our head of marketing. So now,
I didn't come up with this idea. Someone did it to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I am copying that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great. And that's what inspiration is for. So that's
right.
Super cool.
Exactly.
So one question then now, I guess, so you have made this change. What are some metrics now? So what's the comparison? You mentioned from MQLs to deals closed was 0.1%.
Yeah.
What's it looking like now?
Oh yeah. I mean, so like the demo request is like depending on the quarter, somewhere between 6.5 and 7.5. So it's like dramatically different percent from demo inquiry through to closed-won business.
Wow.
So it's dramatically different.
So if I may go back one step, Andy, previously from an MQL to demo and then from demo to close, what do you know off the top of here? What's the percentage from an MQL to a demo previously?
Like no more than a couple of percent.
Okay.
Like once they got to that kind of like demo stage, it's like the conversion rate through. Yeah, like not very high. So we basically go from needing for like in the 0.1%, like you need 1,000 of a thing to get one customer to be needing 15 of a thing to get a customer. It's like just a completely different funnel that we're working with.
That's massive. And are you spending the same kind of money, or are you spending more, or?
Yeah, we're spending roughly the same.
Wow.
We are spending roughly the same. It's distributed in slightly different places, and in terms of how do we like do ROI calculations and stuff like that, just look at the entirety. How much did we spend? And how much did we get back? And we just kind of keep it pretty simple.
Totally.
And then you can still tell whether like there were some things in this quarter, half, whatever mix that were like stand out, worked very well, and what wasn't, and can make adjustments like that. But we're kind of looking at like the total impact of everything that we did, rather than picking on individual channels.
So would you say that you're a firm believer in the fact that the whole notion of someone downloading content is not necessarily a strong signal of buying intent? Like, would you agree with that?
Yeah. And what was fun when we were going through this, so we did this with LinkedIn lead gen forms in January, and then like since that point we've kind of been like learning more and more and coming to more realizations, and like reasonably recently, as in like within the last month, have like made an equivalent change across the entire inbound funnel. So now like we don't hand over, like it's literally just demo requests, chat, and a few types of events and PQRs going through to sales. And what was fun during that process, when I go around talking to people and kind of explaining what we're intending to do, you ask the question of the table. You're like, right, when was the last time anyone downloaded some content? Maybe like half of people put their hand up. And you say, okay, cool. Did you get contacted by an SDR? Another half put their hand up. And you say, all right, did you respond? No one. And you're like, okay, right. So we're basically expecting our customers or potential customers to do something completely different to what we do.
Yeah.
Even though in our case, a test case, their marketers do.
Yeah.
They know what we know. Like they know what they're getting. Everybody B2B buying. They know what they're getting into.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. Like our data just showed that there's a very, very big difference between a conversion type where someone has said, I'm somewhat interested in buying what you're selling, and a conversion type where they have not.
Exactly. Like booking a demo is, I believe it's probably one of the strongest form of intent signals anyone can have. Request pricing or something like that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So one question I have, and it just came to my mind, is there a platform that does the stuff that Attest does, but for B2B people?
That's a great question. I mean, Attest will do it for B2B people,
right?
Yeah. It works, and this will be true for like anyone, anyone that does similar things. Like it's a bit easier to do for B2C. We have B2B clients.
You do? Okay.
100%.
Nice. Okay, cool. Well, this was a lot of fun, Andy. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing all these insights. Some of those things I also believed in, but your data backs it up. And I know folks like Chris Walker, and there's a bunch of folks on LinkedIn that are talking about it. So that's great to hear. And the other thing was the attribution piece that you talked about. We face the same thing. Is like, okay, I know some people saw an ad on LinkedIn or Facebook or maybe on Google Display Network, and then maybe 3 weeks later they booked a demo. So it says Google search is the final channel. How do you attribute for all the efforts? Should you stop spending money on LinkedIn? Does that? But it's great the way you guys are doing it, and the survey thing that you did to get people to just say how did you find out about us? It's brilliant, actually.
Yeah. People are really open.
Yeah.
Actually, we learned some really interesting things about our sales process as well.
Really?
Like good and bad. When people came back and gave it to us, which is brilliant. Amazing. Right? So we got some kind of incredible insight there. It was really educational. Yeah.
Around insights around, you mean the buyer's journey, really?
Yeah.
That's
so
amazing.
it didn't just tell us about channels. It told us about kind of like that whole prospect experience. So it helped us work out what channels we should double down in, or like where we're running on gut feel, but actually we got some validation. Good. But also kind of we've changed some of that kind of how we manage a lead through that process as well, because of one of the comments that we got. Okay, that's fair. Make some changes, which just means we've created a more efficient, almost like a more efficient customer-centric process.
Absolutely, and super data-driven too.
Yeah, always.
That's amazing.
That's what we do at Attest, right?
Right, exactly. No, you are you are eating your own dog food, so this is great. Yes. Awesome. Thank you so much, Andy, and thanks a lot.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks.